Okay, welcome back. In this unit, we're focusing on something called REST, R-E-S-T. It stands for Representational State Transfer, but that's really not key to this lesson. It's not that important, and actually, I bet that most developers, if you ask them what it stands for, they would have no clue. But they would be able to tell you what REST is and name the 7 different RESTful routes that we'll see in a moment, but they probably won't know what it stands for. So not that important. What is important, though, is defining what REST is. So REST isn't a new tool or a new technology. It's not a language or anything like that. It's much simpler. REST is just a pattern for defining our routes. It's a way of mapping HTTP routes and CRUD together. And remember CRUD, it's another acronym. Create, read, update, and destroy. So we have these functionalities. And let's take an example of users. So my site has users, and I want someone to be able to create a new user. Someone should be able to read users, which means retrieving information on users, updating users, and destroying users, or deleting them. Or if we take the example of a blog site, which I have right here, I want to be able to read all blogs. So that's what I see right here. This is a list of all blogs. But then I want to be able to add a new blog, which is what I have here, new post. I want to be able to edit a blog, see a form to edit it, add some exclamation points. You can see my blog was edited, and I want to be able to delete a blog. So let's delete this one, delete blog. And I need routes for all of that. Inside of my Express app, there's 7 different app.gets, app.post, app.something routes that are being defined. And yes, 7 sounds like more than we need, but remember that for some operations, like for creating something, we need 2 routes. We need the form route that shows us this form, and then we need a place for the form to submit. The same thing goes for edit. So to update something, we need a form like this, and I need somewhere for the form to go. So we'll spend some more time going over the particular routes. But what's important is that REST is just a convention, it's an architecture for mapping our HTTP routes to CRUD functionality. So what we could do, let's say I wanted to be able to take blogs. So our entity, our thing is blog. If I wanted to have a page where you could destroy a blog, for instance, our URL could be something like blog or just destroy blog. And then we need a blog that we're destroying, so we'd have an ID there. Or to update, we might have something like update blog /ID. And to read all the blogs, we could have something like /read all blogs, or just all blogs. And the point is, we could do whatever we want. And that's the point of REST, is that you don't do whatever you want. You follow a pattern. And the reason that you make RESTful routes, the whole point behind it, is 1, it's conventional. You see it all over the place in different applications. But more importantly is the fact that it's reliable, so that other people who are working on your code, or when we talk about APIs, if you're interacting with a RESTful API or someone is interacting with your own API that you've created, you know that if something is RESTful, it follows a particular pattern. And that pattern is this here. So I have a table of all the different RESTful routes, in this case, for what else but dogs. So these are 7 routes that we define in our application. And there's kind of a lot to talk about here and to really break it down. So don't get overwhelmed. We're going to devote a video to each one of these and to actually implementing it. And we'll be building this simple blog site. And a quick note while I'm here is that this is not built with Bootstrap. It's built with another framework called Semantic UI. And I did that for a few reasons. One is that I just like Semantic UI. I think it's a little cleaner what you actually write in your HTML. 2, I like the way that it looks. And 3, and most importantly, I wanted you to see another framework for CSS so that you see that they're not that different, honestly. Things are very similar. Maybe some of the classes are named differently, but there's a grid system, there's buttons, there's nav bars, all the stuff that's in Bootstrap. There are other equivalent frameworks out there. Okay, so we'll be making this and we'll be doing the styling at the end, so that's not really the focus. What is the focus, though, are the routes. So if we start here on /blogs, you can see that I have a list of all the blogs in my database. and this is called the index route. So this table, you can see index, that's the name of one of the routes. The URL for dogs would be /dogs. For blogs, it's /blogs. And the HTTP verb is a GET request, and the purpose is to list all of the dogs. Now let's take a look at new and create, which are color-coded. They're both green because they have to do with one another. They're both related to creating a new dog. And edit and update are also both color-coded because they are linked as well. So new and create, if we go back to the blog site and I click on new post, pay attention to the URL, /blogs/new. And all that I do, or all that I see, is a form. And according to our table here, new, the URL, the path is /dog/new. It's a GET request, and it's supposed to show the new dog form. In our case, it's blog, and we see the form here. So let me go copy an image URL. Let's just take this one. New post. We'll just make a random post here, and we'll be deleting it. We click on create, and it's important then that we talk about the create route. So create is where this form goes to, where this new post form submits. So if we take a look at the table, it says create goes to /dogs as a post. So we already have /dogs as a GET, as our index page. /dogs as a post is where we go to actually post form data to create a new dog and then redirect somewhere. So we saw this in the last unit when we talked about CRUD. We talked about creating things and post requests in Express. So this is a post request, a route that's listening for a post to /dogs. And if we inspect the form, of course, let's look at the action, /blogs as a post. Okay, so hopefully you're seeing by now, we have this table. It just acts as basically a pattern that we follow. We can fill in the blanks. If we're not doing dogs, we might be doing blogs or comments or campgrounds or users. And I'll actually show you really briefly with Yelp Camp, which I have open here. Notice that, I'll start the server up. Notice that the page where we see all the campgrounds is /campgrounds. If I want to add a new campground, first I have to log in, and this is a later version, obviously with some functionality we don't have yet, but if I do log in, notice that if I go to add new campground, campgrounds/new, which is the exact same pattern, replace dogs with campgrounds. And then if we look at where the form submits, of course, we would expect to see /campgrounds as a post, which is what we see right there. And all the other RESTful routes are here as well, and we'll be implementing those later. And the reason that we're waiting to do it to Yelp Camp is that it's linked to user authentication. So we don't want someone to be able to add a new campground unless they're signed in. And I don't want to be able to delete someone's campground unless I created it. Same thing for updating it. So we first will get authentication going, and then we'll work on adding in the rest of the RESTful routes. So I'll close out of there for now. So let's keep moving on. We've covered index, new, and create. And then we have the show route, which you just saw in the last unit when we added the show page to Yelp Camp for a campground. And the point of a show page, in the case of dogs, is that it shows info about one specific dog. So for instance, on our blog site, if we go back to that, make sure I start the server again, and if we go to the home page, our index/blogs shows a little bit of each blog post, but it doesn't show every piece of information. So for instance, this here, if I click on it, there's some extra content that we don't see. The way that I have it set up is that it shows the first 100 characters on the index, but if you want to read the entire post, you have to click on Read More. So our show page is right here. Notice the URL, /blogs/this crazy ID, just like we did with Yelp Camp. That's the point of the show page. It takes one particular ID, something that's unique, and it finds the corresponding item and shows you all the information, or as much information as you want, on that one page. So an index and show are two read routes as far as CRUD goes. The R index will show all it will list all of a particular whatever dog or blog or user or campground. And show is for one. So it shows more information. It's a GET request. I hit enter, it sends a GET request because it's through my nav bar. And it goes to /dogs, whatever the entity is, /users, /blogs, /ID as a path variable. So that's show. Then we have edit and update. And those two are linked together. They correspond to one another just like new and create. So edit is going to show us the form, and update is where the form submits. So let's start with edit. For dogs, the URL is /dogs/:ID/edit as a GET request, and it shows the edit form for one dog. If we try and edit one of these here, pay attention to the URL. Notice that we get blogs/ID/edit. And we need that ID there because we have to find the correct blog that we're editing. That's how we pre-populate the data here. We could just have blog/edit, but then how would we know what we're editing? How would we retrieve the data, figure out what to actually update in the database? So that doesn't really work. But if we follow RESTful routes, we follow the RESTful convention, blogs/ID/edit. And I see the form here. And then if we look at where the form goes, it also needs to have an ID in the URL. And it goes to blogs/ID. And then there's some weird stuff, method equals put, method equals post. We'll be getting to that in a little bit. But the key thing, if we check the table, is that it's a put request. So not a post request, a put request, which we haven't used yet. It's just another HTTP verb that's used to update something. Rather than posting new data, the practice, if you're following RESTful routes, you use put. And the nice thing about REST is that if you have a table like this, hopefully you'll memorize this after making a few apps that follow this pattern. In my experience, it takes a little bit for students to really get it second nature. But if you follow this table, you keep it open, and I actually included it inside the notes here. Inside of RESTful routing, right here is the table. And if you want to view it at any time, all that you have to do, you don't have to copy this over to a new file, you don't have to serve it with Express. If you just open the file right here, and then you click on preview, you can click on live preview file, and it will open it right here inside of your application, inside of Cloud9. So if you want to do that, keep it open. Or if you want to make a shorter version, this is something we'll be coming back to a lot though. Which is nice because it's just a blueprint. We just follow it. We don't have to think about what to do as long as we have this table to remind us of the routes. So edit shows us the form. It has an ID in the URL. Update is where that form sends data to. And it also needs an ID because it's not just like create, where we're blindly creating a new dog or a new blog. The process inside update is that we take new data from the form and we have to find the old data. We have to look up the post or the dog first and then update it with the new data. So we have to look something up using that ID. Just like show, edit, and destroy, which we haven't talked about yet, these four that have an ID in the URL need to be able to look up a particular dog or post first. Finally, we have destroy. The way that destroy works is that it's a single route, so there's no separate form that then sends a request to destroy like there is for new and create, although there is a form involved, but typically our destroy looks like this. If I go back and click on one of these posts, I have a form right here with a single button, and it's going to send a delete request to /dogs, in this case, /ID, or on our blog site, /blogs/ID. So delete request, and the point is that it deletes a particular thing and then redirects somewhere. So there are three routes that really redirect, and they are the three routes that aren't GET requests. So we have create, we have update, and destroy. Those are the ones that are doing something new. They're taking data, or they're deleting, they're creating, or they're updating. And then when they're done with that, they send you somewhere else. And it's also worth noting that /dogs/ID is the exact same URL as update and as show. But they're very different routes because of the HTTP verb. So in Express, we can have app.get/dog/id. And then we can have app.put/dog/id and app.delete/dog/id, and they're 3 separate routes. Same thing goes for index and create. Both of those are /dogs, but index is a get and create is a post. Okay, so this is somewhat of an overwhelming amount of information, I know. The good news again is that you have this chart. We'll be referencing it. We're going to break it down one piece at a time and create our blog site from scratch. And you'll just become naturally more comfortable with all these routes as you progress. So let's go back and just want to wrap everything up again. That REST, this whole acronym, representational state transfer, is not important. What is important is that RESTful routing is a pattern of routes that we can follow. So if we want to have full CRUD, create, read, update, destroy, or delete for some entity, users, comments, campgrounds, reviews, ratings, whatever it is in our application, we want people to be able to create, read, update, and delete them. We can map that functionality to the 7 RESTful routes. Just a pattern. You do not have to use it to have CRUD in your application. You can break the rules, do whatever you want. This isn't something that's enforced in any way. It's just a convention and a nice pattern and architecture for how we structure our routes. So that's a really important part. We could do whatever we want, but we're going to follow RESTful routes, again, because it's just a good idea.